Can an estate agent become a mortgage broker? I actually myself started off as an estate agent, then became a mortgage broker. So the answer, I hope anyway, is yes. Oh, it definitely is yes. Today in this video, I'm going to unpack kind of the main questions around this process, how it works, the pros, the cons, and all of that stuff. So let's dive into it. What skills from a estate agency actually transfer straight into mortgage advice? So there's actually loads of skills that transfer. Mainly, you are working in the property services industry already. And mortgage services, yes, it's a weird one. It straddles two things. It straddles financial services, but it also straddles kind of property services because you are dealing in that world. You are doing the finance on purchases of homes. So if you have a estate agency background, you've worked in that process, you understand how chains work, you understand how the whole sales and the kind of buying of properties work, you understand like conveyancing, you understand all of that stuff, then just understanding the kind of finance side in more depth is all you really need to do to be able to transfer a lot of that. And I found that myself, the transferable skills were crazy high. And you see it a lot. It's a lot of people who do that, who will go and work for large corporate companies as an estate agent. Then they'll go through their academy, train them up to become mortgage brokers, and then they'll be mortgage brokers after that. It's really common. So there's so many transferable skills. And in my opinion, I think it's probably the most transferable job of all of the jobs when it comes to being a mortgage broker. I think it's probably the best one. It's better than being in a bank and moving across. It's better than working, in my opinion, as a paraplanner or something and moving across, because you get a real experience of sales. You get a real experience of how the actual kind of sausage machine factory runs. So then what is the biggest mindset shift between selling property and advising on finance? It's quite big, actually. It's quite a huge shift. Definitely ones that most people, especially from an estate agency background, don't get, is that this is a regulated environment, meaning that if you do something wrong and you do something incorrect, you advise the wrong thing, you do something dodgy, so to speak, your career and your qualifications, and potentially even you could go to jail for it, depending on how severe or large that scopes are going to be. So it's quite an important distinction to understand as a difference between the estate agency role, which is completely unregulated, and people, which is why people always say about estate agents, it's a bit of a cowboy industry. And I like estate agents. I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, I started my career in it, but it is 100% a bit more cowboy, a lot more cowboy than mortgage brokering, because mortgage brokering itself is regulated by the FCA, which is the Financial Conduct Authority. And so that's a big difference. And then that's one of the things. The other mindset shift around it, honestly, is that you do a lot more for the client. There's a lot more going on. Estate agents, truthfully, having done that job, you don't do as much for the client as you would as a broker, because when you're doing an estate agent, you put the house in the market, you do some viewings, kind of about it, to be completely honest with you. It doesn't do much more than that. The real skill as an agent is to get people to like you and then put it on the market for you. A lot of agents will tell you differently. I've worked with lots of agents. I've been an agent. There is some skill to it to a point, but nowhere near as much as there is in regards to being a mortgage broker, where when you're a mortgage broker, you are having to do more research. You're going to have to package and place a case together and scour across lenders and insurance providers and criteria, and does that fit? And yes, everybody has access to the same deals if you're a whole of market, but it doesn't necessarily mean everyone's going to come with the same conclusion. And so the real skill as a mortgage broker, and the difference for an estate agent is very, especially nowadays, very black and white. Put it on Rightmove, price it well. If it priced well, it'll sell. It's not the same at all. And so you do have to start to become a much better salesperson. And I know a load of estate agents who, well, you wouldn't be watching this if you didn't believe that already, who will get a bit funny about that. But hey, tough, that's just my experience. There is some incredible estate agents out there, but like, it's harder. Those incredible estate agents could probably be phenomenal mortgage brokers if they transfer those skills across. So do you need to start your qualifications from scratch, or does experience count for anything? No, it doesn't count for anything at all. It does count for stuff in regards to doing the job. You will have a lot more experience, like I said at the beginning of this video, in doing the job, in understanding the roles and how the kind of machine moves, but you still have to do your qualifications. There's no transferable time on the job to it. You still have to do your CMAPs or your CMAP equivalents. You're going to have to do those. You've got to go into the same route as everybody else into this industry. And I think that is something that puts a lot of people off. I know with me, for example, I'm dyslexic and I have ADHD, undiagnosed at the point when I was an estate agent, but different now. But at the time, I didn't want to do my exams. I became an estate agent, not a mortgage broker first, because I was dyslexic and I didn't think I'd be able to do the exams. Now, then doing the job for a while, what I realized was actually I can do this thing. And I pushed myself into doing the exams and I failed. I'm not going to lie, I did fail. And then I eventually passed. But I did notice that those things, they didn't transfer across in the actual getting the job. But once I became a mortgage broker, then the transferable skills were really obvious, and in fact became a bit of a crutch to lean on while I was learning and didn't really know much about being a mortgage broker. Even though my dad was in the industry, my sister was in the industry, my sister's boyfriend was in the industry, everyone I knew really was in the industry, but still I didn't know how that was working, and I could lean on my estate agency and property knowledge to cover the gaps and plaster over those gaps until I eventually learned the job. And that does help once you're qualified, but it doesn't help towards any qualifications before that. So then what do estate agents underestimate about the compliance side of this job? I think that until you've been in a regulated environment, estate agents just have no clue. And I spoke about this actually recently in another video about how when you're younger as a mortgage advisor, one of the things that is a weakness to you is that you don't have the lived experience. You haven't got married usually, you haven't had children, you haven't moved house, you haven't lost relationships in the same way or lost loved ones potentially in the same way. All of these things have a huge impact on your lived experience to what you can empathize or sympathize, one of the two. You can connect to the person. And that, by the way, is 100% the biggest issue with estate agents to mortgage advisors and mortgage brokers. Categorically, having been in both camps, is that most estate agents have no clue what a mortgage broker actually does. And I was guilty of that. I didn't know what they did. Even though my family worked in it, I still didn't really understand it. And then once you become a mortgage broker, you realize they do a lot more, a hell of a lot more than you thought. And the stakes are a lot higher. And you definitely get to realize that the compliance side, the paperwork side, the time consuming side is significantly higher than you ever possibly thought. Now, yes, there is software out there. There's great tools and onboarding things you can use in order to slow this stuff or to speed this stuff up and not have to be as involved in it. But when you're starting out, you are going to have to do it. There's no way around that. You shouldn't do the job if you can't commit to that. And it's pretty brutal in my honest opinion. I think that compliance shock is a big wake up call, and you can definitely feel that in the room in any corporate that you're at, where there's the difference between the estate agents and the mortgage brokers, and it's because the estate agents think that you don't do anything, and you absolutely do. You do a lot more, honestly, than what they do. Now, you don't deal with, and that's the difference. There's two different things: that you don't deal with as much kind of aggression and hostility as you would as estate agents. Most estate agents will deal with more hostility from clients and from the public, and because people, one, think it's okay to talk to estate agents like that, and two, which it isn't, by the way, and two, that you're selling something and they want it, but they might not get it, and they just, for some reason, it seems to be okay to be rude to estate agents. You don't have that in the same way as a mortgage advisor at all. You will have the odd rude client, yes, of course. But the great thing about that is that if they're rude to you, it's purely because most of the time you've caught them out in a situation they didn't want to be caught out in. And so, yeah, it's not as much of a kind of confrontational role as the state agency is, which I think the state agency can help you with that and really build up that kind of thick skin. But the compliance side of it, though, is much, much harder. And most estate agents, including myself, don't really understand that the stakes are much higher, and they can't get their head around that for a long time until they eventually learn or they leave. There's the honest truth of that. So what would I say to an estate agent who's on the fence about making the move now? I would say that I would weigh up before you make the decision about money, because most of the time people make this decision, I know I did, was about money. I was like, I can make more money as a mortgage broker than I can as an estate agent, which, by the way, yes, I can and did, but, and it's quite important, but there's other factors involved in that I think you need to weigh up. So the first one being, if I was to do it again, I wouldn't have changed. If I was to do it again, I wouldn't change anything, because I ended up becoming a mortgage broker. I had a good career as a broker, and then I became a coach, and I've had a great career as a coach for the last 8 years plus, really, and I've loved doing that. But I know that I was more suited to being an estate agent than I probably was a broker. Being dyslexic and ADHD, I wasn't really my strong suit when it came to compliance and things like that. So I would say that weigh up in your head, one, why are you doing it? So for me, it was money. But the other reason I wanted to do it at the time was I wanted the ability to potentially be able to go off my own self-employed. And the great thing about mortgage brokering is you can just have a phone and a laptop, and realistically, you've got a business. With a state agency back then, that wasn't the case. It's changed now with things like EXP and Keller Williams and stuff like that. Yes, it's more feasible to be able to be an estate agent on your own in your local area and do well, but that was not the case when I was doing it. So this was more of a kind of an exit plan, long-term plan. So weighing up what your goal is with it, weighing up also, you will spend a lot of time in front of a computer doing paperwork. You will. One of the things I missed about being an estate agent was the on the road and constantly interacting with clients in their environment, seeing new people. You do have that to some extent, but nowhere near as the same extent. You're on Zoom talking to people and that's it. And I know with me, for example, I was really into fitness and CrossFit and stuff. But also I put on quite a bit of weight at the beginning when I became a mortgage advisor because I wasn't on the road walking around, walking to appointments, walking around houses. That kind of activity, definitely that went from a very active job to a sedentary job. They're huge. So weigh those things up. Do you want to be out and about on the road, talking to people, seeing new people, all different work, like life points? One of the things I didn't think about, for example, and I think I bring this up here, is with one of my favorite parts of being an estate agent was interacting with older people. I loved it. I really loved listening to their stories, learning about their lives. I loved that part of the job. And I didn't think this through until I became a mortgage broker and then realized that older people don't have mortgages, and so I didn't actually have that interaction, which was one of the interactions I loved the most about the job, and I lost that. So these are all little things that you have to just weigh up in your head as to whether or not it's the right decision for you. Only you will know that. It's an incredibly rewarding career, incredibly lucrative career, and you can have a real impact in people's lives as a mortgage broker. More impact than you can as an estate agent, significantly more, because they'll speak to you every 2 years. You'll be there to protect them with their children and their life insurances, and there's lots of other things you get to do for them than just sell them a house at 1%. You know what I mean? So, or sell their house, for 1%. Yeah, that. So it's all about weighing up which one works for you. But it's a brilliant career to transfer into. And I think it's a bit of a career progression in that industry. But you do need to know that you're going in with your eyes fully wide open.